YouTube. So after Thanksgiving in the shop, messing around with the rat rod, I think I'm ready to drill some holes in the frame. I'm not ready to do everything yet, but I think I'm going to start with the front. I've got my mounts here. Start with this. I've got my radius arms on the axle and they are crooked, which is not good. I'll have to figure that out, but I've marked where the holes are, where I need to be on this rail. I'm going to mount them back about here. I've got a hole here. I'm going to drill across for a cross member. I may have to adjust the width of this a little bit. Throw it on the belt sander, work it down a little bit, because I need the rails to taper in from here so they don't interfere with the front suspension. And I've got an idea around about where I want my end of frame cross member to go, and I'm pretty confident in the width of that, so I'm going to go ahead and drill those first, and then we'll kind of mock it up and see how things look. Alright guys, so got a little bit of work done, got some holes drilled. Already a couple issues. My frame is wider at the back of the cab than it was intended to be, so the body doesn't sit down on these grooves that are made into it. So I'm going to have to cut the body a little bit. Second problem is kind of a big one. I can't make the front of the frame any narrower because that's kind of roughly where my servo needs to sit, and I can't really make that any smaller. And with the front axle mounted, it hits the bolts that I've mounted the front cross member with. These scale bolts sticking out right here. So I can't exactly widen this because there's only one set of mounting holes on the axle. I can pry it open a little bit, but it's still gonna give me some trouble, so I've got to try some other things, see if some button head screws will give me the room I need, or if I'm going to have to look at another way of installing that cross member. Maybe try to weld it, or make one out of steel and weld it in, or something else. So I did go ahead and drill some holes for the rear. I've got to move my rear lower links to the outside, and that way they can go to the outside of the frame. They're going to be roughly here, and that will involve cutting some of the back of the cab out a little bit more too, which is another problem because in here it has these mounts made in, and that's going to cut into those almost completely. But I think that's what's best for the rear suspension. I can't put that inside the rails because it's just going to be too narrow. It's going to make it want to lean and sway more. And if I put them on the outside of the 4-link mount, that puts them perfectly outside of the frame rail. So I think that's just where it's meant to be. I haven't looked at the upper mounts yet. We'll get to that once we get the lower ones on and the axle roughly where I wanted it. I did mark the frame here where my center of my rear axle I'd like it to be. It can move a little bit. Nothing's set in stone. So I'm going to get back to work and see about hanging this front one first. got it kind of mocked up. I came to a stopping point, so that's where I'm going to wrap it up. Got the front end. I could go ahead and make a link for my steering, for my servo, but I'm still, this is going to have to come apart a handful more times, so I'm not going to tidy up little details like that just yet. Still a little off in the front. I've got to, before I do anything else up front, I've really got to figure out suspension. There's not as much room up here to work with as I had envisioned, so I've got to come up with a plan and make something for that before I move any further forward with any of that. I did go ahead and cut the cab a little bit, as you saw, make a little room in the back, and flip it around here. Alright, so the lower mounts are in. They go just under the edge of the cab. The upper mounts I've got to play with the lengths on. I don't think I'm going to make them come all the way up to the top. I think that's going to be, spread the four-link too far open like that. They need to be parallel. That is also going to change where I mount my shocks, so that's why I'm waiting on that. Realistically, I should come back and chop down the rear of the frame. From my original cardboard mock-up, I lowered it maybe half an inch, but I think I could go almost another inch. Take that out of this section. Not sure yet if I want to go that route. It does sticking up a little high for me. It's going to be a pain in the rear to do it and to keep both sections parallel, but it might be worth the trouble just for hanging that rear axle out there better. And it's going to give me a little more room for more body or something if I decide to make a bed for it. So that's still on the table. Might make a change there. Just have to wait and see. Got the axle about as far back as I like it. Close to my original mark that I made. It's hard to tell until we set the pinion angle where exactly it'll be. But yep, I'm going to call this one a wrap. So you guys stay tuned for more. I've got a long way to go still. But I appreciate all the positive feedback I'm getting on this. And thank everybody for tuning in and sticking with me. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, most of which has come in 2016. So I'm glad to have everybody. And appreciate y'all watching. So be sure to check out Instagram, it's RC Everyday, for sneak peeks of things that I'm doing, like this. So anyway, stay tuned.